Good morning, everyone. Well, good morning if you're in the US. Let's see here. There's always so many little details to get right here. And most of you are probably still having your coffee anyway. So get settled in for another action-packed episode of Win or Learn. Okay, let's see. I got to get this set up so that I got one thing that's on a delay, so that can screw me up. But I also want to see your comments and questions. Okay. Oh, it's 4 p.m. Where are you, Lewis? Where would it be 4 p.m.? Not in the U.S. It's the latest it would be in the U.S. would be the East Coast, which is only 11. There's Tom from Jersey. Oh, you're in England. Cool. How's the weather in England? I like England. I've been to London twice and really liked it. Oh, I just messed up my camera. Okay, there we go. For those of you who follow me, I was just in Eastern Europe. The only other time I'd been to Eastern Europe was to go to Prague in the Czech Republic. All right, it's sunny in England. Very cool. It wasn't sunny in England the two times that I was there, but I know the sun does shine there. Whoa, we got somebody from Egypt. Awesome. Really, really cool. I almost bought tickets to Egypt for this year. A friend of mine wanted to go, and I said, I got a lot going on this year. Let's hold off Egypt for later, because the thing too that I don't like to do when I travel is I don't like to stress about it. All right. My mother left me a voice message, and that box needs to go away. All right. I'll talk to you later, Mom. All right. So I just got back from Eastern Europe, which was a wonderful trip that I took with my girlfriend. She's from Romania, and I wanted to check it out. I had not been there before. I had heard some interesting things about Romania, and it was kind of all coming clear to me. And I was like, oh yeah, Nicolae Ceausescu, the dictator who was overthrown, I believe, in 1989. And I love history. And so little pieces of history that I had heard over the years about Romania started to come back to me. And finally, when I got there and we were going through a tour, it was like, oh yeah, okay, now it's all kind of coming together for me. So that was one of the things that I was doing. I think it was kind of annoying my girlfriend, because every time we would go past a building, I would say, well, where does that building come from, or how old is that building? And she was just like, let's just go on a tour. she didn't have it all memorized, but I love that stuff. And it was a great trip. So I landed in Budapest, and from Budapest, she's from a town which is only about 3 hours from Budapest, but in Romania. So we went there, and then we stayed there for a little bit, but then we took a road trip across Romania, and she hasn't been driving very long. And she was like, okay, I want you to drive, because I just don't trust myself. And I don't necessarily like driving in foreign countries, because I'm a pretty good driver, but you just miss things, because either it's in a different language, or the way that the drivers operate in a different country, it's just different, and I don't want to cause an accident. The last thing I want to do is get into an accident in a foreign country. But anyway, I said, okay, sure, I'll drive. And the Romanian drivers can be pretty aggressive, and the roundabouts, there's just roundabouts everywhere. And I don't get quite the etiquette of the roundabout just yet. I know what the etiquette in the US is, but in Romania is a little bit different. But we made it across Romania from one end of it to Bucharest. And Bucharest is a great city. It's a really nice city. I happened to bump into an old teacher of mine by the name of Sid Jacobson. He's been around NLP almost since the beginning. Like, I'd say he's been around since 1980. He started learning NLP, and so NLP was basically named NLP in 1975. He might have been around a little bit earlier than that, but he wasn't one of the original groups. And he saw the pictures I was posting on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in Bucharest teaching. Let's get lunch." So it was interesting to meet him there. I hadn't seen him in years. I'd actually brought him to Santa Cruz to do trainings before. Very talented guy. And so we ended up in Bucharest, and I made a video there. The last video I posted this past Wednesday was shot in Bucharest, and I think it's one of the best videos I've done, maybe in years. I put a lot into it. I had a very structured, organized process that I put in there that's very effective. And it's just one of the strange things. Sometimes I do my best videos and nobody watches them. And I don't want to say nobody watches them because it has gotten, depending on how you look at it. If you're a YouTuber, it hasn't gotten a lot of views, but it's gotten over 200 views. And that's, if you think about over 200 people watched your video, that's pretty cool. But overall, in comparison to how many people I normally watch my videos, that's actually very, very small. And it's a shame because it's a like I said, a powerful process. And I'll talk a little bit about it here, but I'm not going to go into too much about it because you can just watch the video, and it's not a very long video. But it was fun shooting in Bucharest. I love shooting videos in other countries and seeing how people respond. It's fun to see how they look at you when they don't want to look at you while you're shooting, but as soon as they pass you, they always, they look back and say, "Who is that?" And you can see this when you're editing. You always see the look back. And by the way, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. This is an authentic Hawaiian shirt. This is one of my other trips that I went to earlier this year. I went to Hawaii for the first time, and as a Californian, that's really bad. People who live here in California, Hawaii is like their backyard. I remember up until February when I went to Hawaii, people were like, "You've never been to Hawaii?" I was just like, "Yeah, it's just one of those things. I hadn't been high on my list. If I'm gonna go somewhere, I like to go to a different country." Hawaii is probably the closest thing to a different country and still being in the US for me, though. It's very exotic if you haven't been, and, it was really interesting. I've never seen anything as beautiful as a Hawaiian sunset. Those are just extraordinary, and they last a really long time. So I've already gotten to do some pretty decent travel so far this year. And Eastern Europe has always been an interest of mine because I went to Western Europe 4 times before. This was my 5th trip to Europe, and, Eastern Europe is just so different than Western Europe. So if you have a chance, I recommend checking that out. Oh, you want me to link the video? I'll do it later because it will take me some time to do it. I don't wanna make people wait. But if you just go to my YouTube channel, it is literally the last video I put up. It was put up there just Wednesday. So if you just go to my YouTube channel, do that, and then see what the last video was that I put up there. All right, good morning to you too, Lara. All right, so back to my trip. This does have a point to it. I'm not just rattling on and telling you all about my trip because it's on top of my mind. I want to talk about it. That's true too. When I come back from a trip, I'm always excited about it. We flew from Bucharest to Budapest, and I wanted to hang out there in Budapest for a little bit. And by the way, Budapest is a really cool city. It's kind of funky, but it's also very modern and hip, and along with the old buildings that are still there, which I love. I love old buildings, and we stayed in an old building. And I'd like to spend some more time in Budapest. And I saw another NLP person there, someone who I'd done some NLP training with. She had come to California to do NLP training, and that's where I first met her. And it's interesting because every time I travel, well, not every time, but most of the times when I travel, I know somebody somewhere in some country because we've done NLP training together, and I can always hit them up and meet them for lunch. And it's nice to know somebody in a foreign town, somewhere you've never been before. So it was really nice meeting her. I also got to interview Alex Leon of the Natural Lifestyles. If you're not familiar with the Natural Lifestyles, they're an dating, what would you call them? Company? They teach men how to approach women and how to overcome your shyness and that sort of thing. And I uh, hadn't talked about this very much previous to just recently, and I also created a training around this too, how to overcome that approach anxiety. But I had done training with them, right? It was 3 years ago. I had just split with my ex, and I had been with her for so long that I didn't know where to start with dating again. It was so foreign and it was scary. And I'd done all right in college, but that was like 15 years before. So it was getting back into the game again. And did what everybody does, right? We jump right into another relationship. You've been in a relationship for so long, and when you suddenly get out of one, it opens up this void, and it just doesn't feel right. And you feel only natural if you're in another relationship. So I did that, and it was not good. I mean, there were some good parts about it, but it was overall, without getting into too many details, it wasn't that good. And I realized, well, after I got out of that relationship, which lasted almost a year, I found myself jumping right back into another relationship where the woman had similar qualities, which weren't good for me. And I was like, okay, well, stop. Something's not right here. This is not the direction of my life this is not the direction I want my life to go. Just because I am insecure when I'm not in a relationship, this is not the reason to be in a relationship. In fact, it's the worst reason to be in a relationship. So I started trying to figure out, what do I do next? And so I ended up doing training with these guys in Australia, which was rather life changing because it wasn't just about meeting women. It was about overcoming those barriers from within that hold you back from doing the things that you really want to do but scare you. And that was quite a journey, and it had been a journey ever since. And so I'm interviewing Alex, and I'm going to post the interview. I'm not sure when, but I will. It'll probably be in a few weeks. And I'm interviewing Alex, and my girlfriend's there. And how I met her was here in Santa Cruz. She was traveling, or rather, she was here for the summer. And I saw her in the street downtown, and broad daylight. And I saw this beautiful woman walking down the street, and I thought, well, I want to go talk to her, but I was like, no, I can't. She started making up all these reasons, and I was like, but yes, I want to. And I thought, okay, well, I better do it now because she's continuing to walk. And then if I start following her, that's really creepy. So I was just like, okay, do it. So I ran up to her and introduced myself, and we've been dating ever since. And I'm sitting there with Alex interviewing him and remembering what the training was like 3 years ago, and how positive these guys are, and how it's just really about overcoming those fears and breaking through to being able to tap into who you really are and put that out there for people to see, and communicate that clearly. And it hits me that this journey that I had started 3 years ago really sort of hit a crescendo, a climax here. I'm sitting here with my girlfriend, who um, it's a very good relationship. One, I don't want to compare it to other relationships, but it's very solid, very healthy, and I'm very happy with her. And it's like, wow, this is where the journey started. It didn't start in Budapest, but it started with these guys, and it's 3 years later, and here I am with my girlfriend, and we're traveling together, and we're having a great time in a very, very fulfilling relationship. And it I don't wish that it had, because people might think, well, 3 years, if I start this journey now, 3 years is a long time, but I never thought of it that way. The whole journey was fun. It was frustrating at times. It never feels good to get rejected, but you get over that. And if I look back on those 3 years, it was amazing. I would never not do that journey. If I looking back on it, it was scary at first, but where it led me to, the rich experiences that I had, the breakthroughs that I had, and then finally being able to acknowledge, wow, where has this led me? And it's led me to someone very wonderful, and something very wonderful that is very fulfilling and satisfying. And I can't imagine not having that now. So it was a really good experience to recognize that, to realize that. All right. So we got somebody from Alabama as well. Cool. Love seeing all the people from different places. All right. So as I mentioned, check out that other video because I'm going to refer to it a little bit here. And that video just really gives you a step-by-step process about how to empower yourself. And why would you want to empower yourself? I can think of millions of reasons. Empower yourself to do the things that maybe you're afraid to do. You don't feel like you deserve to do. Maybe you feel like you don't have the confidence to do, or the things that you lack a feeling of self-worth to do. And let's be honest, we all experience that. We all experience that at some point or some areas of our life. Nobody likes to talk about self-esteem. They feel like that's the thing I learned about when I was in grade school, and I got that thing taken care of. My self-esteem is good. Yeah, I'd say probably for most people, that's their self-esteem is pretty decent. But when we feel a lack of confidence or a lack of self-worth, we don't wanna call it self-esteem, but that's exactly what it is. So why do you want to empower yourself? Well, if you don't and you feel unempowered, or you feel all those things that I just mentioned, lack of self-worth, lack of confidence and self-doubt, do you think that you're going to do more or less of the things that you want to do? Do you think you're going to accomplish more or less than the things that you want to accomplish? I think it's pretty obvious. If you don't feel confident, if you don't feel empowered, you're not going to do those things. You're not going to take those risks. And most people are waiting around to feel confident. They're waiting around, "Oh, when I feel more positive, I'll go do that. When I feel more confident, when I feel like I deserve it." You will probably wait forever, and the confidence doesn't just happen to you. It confidence comes from experience. Confidence comes from doing things, life experience. If you are if you wanna feel confident about playing the violin before you actually play the violin, you will wait forever to play the violin. I don't know why that playing the violin popped into my head, but, I use it I guess I got kinda tired of using the same one about flying an airplane. You know, if you take one lesson flying an airplane and you're afraid to go back out there and learn more, so you'd rather feel confident about it before you go back out and fly again, that's not how it works, and you shouldn't feel confident after one lesson. So you need to practice more. So that's probably the thing that people come to me most for is they want to feel more confident about something. No, you're going at it all backwards. And the same thing goes with self-esteem. You want to feel good about yourself before you actually do the things that make you feel good about yourself. It doesn't work that way. If you know what you value and you go do it, then you're going to feel good about yourself. So I hear people all the time say to me, "Oh, I wish I could travel as much as you do." There is no secret here. I decided I wanted to do more travel. I find inexpensive flights. I find times where I can actually do it. And people say, "Well, you don't have a job like everybody else." That's true, but that's something I worked for really hard to do. So anyone can do that. And it's not like I'm just this guy who can drop everything and go anywhere anytime. I have kids as well, and I can't just, you know, abandon the routine that I have with my kids and run off somewhere. It doesn't work that way. So I have restrictions just like everybody else, but I work around them. And when I travel, because I value travel so much, I feel really good about myself when I travel. And that's how this works. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go travel to feel good about yourself. That might not make you feel good about yourself. What do you enjoy doing? And make sure that you're taking the time to go do those things. I remember falling into depression in probably my early 30s. I was probably about 32. And when I look back on that, it was so obvious to me. It wasn't like I experienced chronic depression. I think there is depression in my family, but I don't see any of that as being something really biological. If I look back on my life at the time, I was pretty much engaged in all the stuff that I don't enjoy doing. So it's obvious why I wasn't happy. You know, I was spending most of my time in a business. We're talking in the beginning, it was like 80 hours a week. Later, about the time that I was feeling depressed, I was probably had cut back to about 60 hours a week. I had cut anything that I enjoy out of my life because I felt like I didn't have time for it. Wow, no wonder I was feeling kinda depressed. When you remove everything out of your life that you enjoy and you spend most of your time doing something that you don't enjoy because you're chasing money or you're chasing some sort of success in a business you don't even like. I mean, it's pretty obvious why I wasn't happy, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing the same thing, and they're telling themselves, "But when I get this success, then I'll be able to go do the things that I enjoy." And good luck with that. It's possible that can happen, very, very unlikely, and even if you do, you've spent all of those years, all of that time not enjoying your life. Is that really worth it? And it's for me, when I make that equation, it's not. I would rather get out there and do the things that I enjoy doing now. And I get some pushback from other people saying family, and they say, well, they just think that I shouldn't be doing this. And I think what it really comes down to is they wish they were doing it. And it seems unfair because I'm doing it, but there's nothing not fair about it. If you're going and doing it and you're taking responsibility for your life and you're making the money to do it, whatever it is that you're doing. I used to get that when I was growing up with my brothers. They would say it's not fair. Damon always gets what he wants, which was certainly not true. And never, I didn't always get what I wanted. Did I get a lot? Yes. But one of the things that I would say to them is, what did you even ask for what you want? Just silence after that. So many people are not even just willing to ask for what they want. If you're not willing to ask for what you want, why do you think you should get it? And I don't really mean that as like a deservingness as or you worth it. And that's where we need to make a very clear distinction. There are things that you deserve because you played the rules of whatever game you were playing. And according to those rules, they say if you work, say, X amount of hours and we agreed to pay you X amount of dollars per hour, then yes, you deserve that. And if they don't give it to you, then there's a problem. And then if you didn't work those hours and you didn't get the money, well, it's because you didn't deserve it. So that's one thing. It's quite another thing when we feel like we don't deserve something because we don't have the value or the self worth. That's a completely different issue. And what I go into in that video is that self worth is not real. That type of deservingness is not real. And if the problem with trying to solve that problem is that it's not a problem, and if you're trying to solve that problem, you're only making it worse. And it surprises me that a lot of self-help type gurus are not talking about that. And it makes me wonder if do they even realize that self-worth is not even a real thing. And a lot of them don't realize that because if you're using affirmations, that's an indication right there that you're trying to build self-worth. If you're trying to build self-worth, then you're locked into that game of playing the self-worth game, which means sometimes you're gonna experience self-worth and sometimes you're not. But what would it be like to get beyond it completely? What would it be like to completely drop this idea about self-worth? Your life will change instantly when you do that. When you finally realize that there isn't such a thing, everything changes. Everything changes. It's a good time to take a sip of coffee. I'm gonna get back to this in just a moment. I'm gonna kind of take a segue to something else. Speaking of self-help gurus, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Sometimes I do, meaning that people who are trying to tell you how to live your life, and you could say, well, Damon, isn't that kind of what you're doing? Somewhat. What I want you to do is I want you to live your life. I want you to wake up to what your life is all about and live that. And NLP for me was the best way to do that. And by the way, I should mention, um, if you want a step by step process to really do everything that I'm talking about here, because I'm kind of going in different directions, and that's the beauty of going live is I just kind of it's almost like a rant. I don't want it to get too much into that. I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything. But if you want something more step by step and instruction that guides you on this path that I'm talking about. And it's not about living life the way that I think people should live life. It's about it's about pulling the good stuff out of you and living a fulfilling life for you, which is going to be different for everybody. My membership program is probably one of the best ways to do that, unless you want coaching with me. I fill up kind of quickly though in the coaching. I don't do coaching full time. I enjoy doing it, so I want to do it. I always want to do it. It's very fulfilling, and yeah. So I do coaching, but it takes up a lot of time. So the next best thing to doing coaching with me is my membership program, the Life Mastery Gym membership program. We do have not the same promotion that we were doing before, but a very similar one. So for $7, you can check out the program for 7 days. So it's just a way to get on the inside and take a look and say, okay, is this for me? Is it not for me? And you get the first 3 months. So it's not like you just get one module. I was finding that when people would jump into the program and they would see only one module, they go, okay, well, the first module is great, but I don't know about the second module and the third and the fourth. So you'll get access to the first 3 right away. And then after 7 days, you can say, "Oh, I don't want this or I do want this." Totally up to you. And it is my personal development program. When I say mine, not just because I made it, it's that this is what I use. This is the structure that I follow. And it's not about writing out your goals, achieving your goals, and then checking off boxes. If that's all you're doing, and there's people who are really good at this, they can just write down a goal and they just check boxes. That's to me not really living. I love it whenever I set a goal and then I get halfway there and I go, you know what, this isn't really fulfilling me. If I change direction, I know this will fulfill me. Now that I've gone this direction for a while, I understand that if I keep going in this direction, that's not going to work out for me. And I'm not going to achieve a goal just because I said I was going to achieve it. This is about my life. This is about what fulfills me. This is about what I enjoy doing. And I'm not going to waste time chasing something that will not ultimately fulfill me. I've spent way too many years doing that. So whenever I know to change direction, I'm really happy about that because it tells me I'm tuning into my life and how and whether or not I'm fulfilled or not. And that's something I highly recommend that you learn how to do, because if you just set a goal and you're able to achieve it and you go, why isn't this really working for me? Why am I not happy about this? So I just need to keep chasing goals. It's time to wake up. It's time to realize that this is not what life is about. And then there's the other people who, because it's not really a goal that's going to fulfill them, there's this inner wisdom inside of them that knows that. And how that shows up is laziness and procrastination. That's what they think it is. They think, oh, I'm feeling too lazy to do this. It's, I'm going to go do something else. Why do I do this? Why do I set these goals and then not accomplish them? And I did this. I beat myself up for years about this. No, if you're procrastinating, that's usually a unconscious part of you that's saying, this isn't going to do it for you. So no, we're not on board with this. I'm not going to help you achieve this because it will not fulfill us, collective us, all of your parts. And so it will distract you. It will send you in different directions. It will make you procrastinate. And that's why I tell people, it's like procrastination is not your enemy. Procrastination is not something you need to defeat and overcome. It's a different part of you that has a message for you. And if you're not listening to it, and you're not going to feel whole and fulfilled. So you need to listen to these parts of you. And procrastination is just one way that your collective parts and your collective wisdom brings that to your attention. So imagine when every time you feel lazy or you procrastinate, you're able to understand what this is about and reintegrate that part into you. What'll happen is your perspective will open up and you'll realize that there's more here than you were looking at. And then you can move forward feeling whole. And that's a wonderful feeling because that's when you accomplish. That's when nothing stands in your way because you're fully aligned, you're fully congruent with what it is that you're doing. That's the most powerful thing you could possibly do for yourself. I mean, when you're fully aligned, you feel whole, you feel congruent with exactly what it is that you're doing, nothing can stop you. Nothing will stop you. All right, so that's my membership program. It's a monthly ongoing membership program. It's because personal development and self-improvement never ends. You're going to do this for the rest of your life. It's just like working out, and that's why I use the gym concept. You don't get to a place where you say, "All right, I've exercised enough for my entire life. I'm gonna stay healthy just by not doing anything for my health. I'm not gonna eat right anymore. I'm not going to uh, work out in a gym or exercise anymore because I've done enough. It's just going to work itself out. I've like it's a bank account and you've saved so much money into it, so now you can just coast." No, it doesn't work that way. If you want to stay healthy, if you want to stay physically healthy, you exercise and eating right has to be ongoing, and that's the same with your development. That's the same with realizing your potential and fulfilling your potential. You always have potential, and the more you achieve, the more you of that potential you fulfill, the greater your potential becomes. And this is exciting. This is not like, oh my God, I'm going to be on a treadmill for the rest of my life. No, this is fun. Yes, it can be intense at times. Yes, it can feel like sometimes you just want a break, and that's okay. And take a break. Is that those are important too. You're actually learning a lot when you're taking breaks. You're letting your new experiences settle in and give you and connect with the other parts of you. So breaks are important. I'm not suggesting you treat your life like it's a sprint all the way to the end. We get tired sometimes, and it's important to take breaks. All right. So anyway, if you want to check that out, the link is in the description, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube watching this. If you look in the description, you'll see that. And if you're completely new to all of this and you just happen to stumble across this live and you're like, what is this about? If you want more information about some of what I do, the link to the website is also in the description. And if you're completely new to NLP and you've had no NLP training and you're like, what is NLP? Neuro Linguistic Programming. There is a 4-part video series. I think I'm pretty sure a lot of you who are already watching this have taken that. It's a great introduction to NLP. So it's 4 videos. You get a video a day for 4 days. Check that out as well if you are completely new to this. All right. So I was listening to some self-help guys. They were doing a podcast, but the podcast was on YouTube. That's usually how I do podcasts. I'm more of a visual guy. And they were starting off the podcast talking about all the great, wonderful things they had done over the past summer. I think it wasn't like a live podcast. It was something that was pre-recorded. And I'm watching this, and these guys have been around for a while, and they're good guys, by the way. I'm not in any way dissing them. I'm not going to tell you who they are either, because I don't want it to come back to me. But I'm not dissing them. They are legitimate guys. They walk the walk. They walk the talk. And they were asking each other, "Hey, what did you do over the summer? What did you do over the summer?" And they're sharing these sort of amazing things that they've done. One had gone to a monastery, and that's really popular right now. These entrepreneurs, especially digital entrepreneurs in personal development, self-help. Travel is a big one, of course, but going to like a monastery or being a monk for a summer, really popular these days. And I'm not really interested in doing that. But anyway, so the one of them that had done that, the other one had done more, I guess, pursuits that were more sporty and active, like snowboarding and that sort of thing, in different parts of the world. And I'm asking myself, well, why are they going into this? Because it doesn't really have to do with the topic of the podcast. And I realized that's how they're sort of establishing their authority. This is the reason why you're watching this, or the reason why you're listening to it, is because these guys do what appears to other people as live an extraordinary lifestyle, and not like an opulent lifestyle. They're not rich. They do well financially, but they're not saying, "Oh yeah, I jumped into my Tesla and then I drove it here and then I got into my personal jet." They're not saying those types of things. They're talking about the adventurous lifestyle, kind of like some of the stuff I was talking about with my travel. And I'm thinking, why are they talking about this? And then, of course, it's to establish that authority, that the reason why you're listening to me is because you want what I have. You want to live the life that I'm living right now. And there's two types of people, I think, who listen to that, or two types of people who will make different evaluations of that. I think one type of person will listen to that and say, wow, these wonderful things just happened to these people. And they're probably not consciously thinking about this. It's more unconscious. And they're like, "Ah, yeah, I wish I lived a life like that where these things just sort of happen to me." Like somebody shows up at your door and says, "Let's go on this adventure." And that's just the kind of life that they live and the kind of the friends that they keep, or people who are going to take them on these adventures. They don't even have to plan it or put any effort into it. Or, oh yeah, this person called me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come hang out in this monastery for the whole summer and get your mind right?" And it's like thinking that these things just sort of happen. That's just the kind of life they live. The other type of person will be the person who thinks of this as it takes tremendous effort to do these things. It takes tremendous effort to go on these adventures. It takes money. It takes planning, and it's just not worth it to me. Like that's the evaluation they're making about this. The reason I'm not doing these things, I know that I could do these things, but the reason I'm not doing these things is because of the effort it takes to put into this. Now, I would say that there's a certain amount of truth to both of these perspectives, and there's also a lot of untruth to these perspectives. And that is basically the more you live that life of trying out the things that you maybe want to try, but you're afraid to. And this comes up a lot with travel because I do it a lot, and people say, "Wow, I wish I could travel like you." And I try to show them how easy it is. And when I start to show them this, I start to realize, no, they don't really want to do this. It sounds cool to them to travel, but it's not something they're really willing to put the effort into. And I'll give you an example of in my life how that has happened for me. I remember when I was deeply involved in my insurance business, which I don't have anymore, and I started hitting up some sources of NLP training online and about manifesting dreams and manifesting goals. And part of the training was to write out all of the things that you want and then write out the smaller details about all the things that you want. And so I started doing this and I had a list. My list went into pages and pages. And I was thinking to myself, and you're supposed to read it like 3 times a day. And I was like, oh man, I don't even have time to read all of this stuff. And after some time passed and I stopped reading it, and then I beat myself up about not reading it, and I beat myself up about not following through and all those things. I went back and looked at some of these things, and I was like, I don't want 90% of these things. Sure, it sounds cool to have these things, but I really don't want it. This is I no. One of them was like a boat, like a yacht. And I live in Santa Cruz, which this is an ocean town. And there are lots of boats, and there are lots of people who are really into this. And it's nice to meet people who are really into something. I love talking to people who are into anything. It's exciting just to talk to someone who's excited about whatever it is they're talking about, even if you're not excited about the topic. And so there are people here who are really into boats. I'm not one of those people. And isn't that a good thing to know? Because why would I go chasing this thing if it's not really what I'm into? Now, if I'm living my life and I'm doing my thing and I'm pulling the trigger on the stuff that I want to do and I'm living, what's interesting to me, it's more likely that somebody's going to say, "Hey, I have a boat. You want to come, ride on this boat?" And so that might happen. And so in that sense, things can just happen in your life like that because you're living an active lifestyle. People find you interesting, not because you're bragging about how interesting you are. People find you interesting because you do the things that you're interested in. And then they say, well, yeah, I want to hang out with this person a little bit more. And you will start to get invitations to do fun things like that. So in that sense, these things can just happen in your life, but you don't just sit in your living room watching TV or whatever, and suddenly people just come knocking on your door because you manifested this through the law of attraction or through the secret, or you did the affirmations that you wanted a more adventurous life. And so suddenly people just knock on your door and say, come join us in this infinite party that's going on because you vibrated at the frequency that it takes to do this. It just doesn't happen that way. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, they want to believe this. Stop. It's not like that. When you are actually pursuing the things that you're interested in, you become more interesting. And then yes, these opportunities start to open up for you that weren't there before, or maybe they were there, you just weren't aware of them. There are so many opportunities and solutions happening all around you all the time that you're completely asleep to. I'm guilty of that as well. And so part of what I do is constantly trying to wake myself up to that and try to say yes more than I say no to things. So that's the person who thinks that things just kind of happen to them, or these lucky people who are on the internet, who are on YouTube, who live these charmed lives. These things just happen to. No, there's sure that some things will just happen to them, but it's because they're getting out there. They're putting themselves out there in whatever way interests them, and people are finding them interesting. And especially if you're on YouTube, or you have a big following, you're going to get a lot more of those opportunities. You're also going to get a lot more people saying negative things about you, and that's most people I talk to when they want to start a YouTube channel, they want to start one of these things that sort of like what I'm doing. That's one of their biggest fears, and it's just like, you're going to let these people who you don't even know, because they're going to leave bad comments on your videos, which is inevitable. You're going to let these people stop you from doing what you want to do. Screw that. Whatever other people think, don't worry about it. Get out there and do what you want to do. Don't let these people who you owe nothing to, who have no control over your life, dictate what it is you're going to do. But it's amazing to me how many people will shy away from the things that they want to do because they're afraid, what if somebody says something bad, or somebody says something to me that is negative or critical? Okay, so you have to make a choice here. Do you decide to do what you want to do and run your life, or are you going to let that other person decide that for you? Think about that. So the people who think that this is going to take a lot of effort to live that sort of adventurous life, it does take effort. It does take effort in the beginning, but it depends on, is this the kind of effort that you enjoy? So if I went chasing that boat, which I didn't really want, but it would have been more about proving that I could get a boat, and now I have a boat, so that looks cool. So I would have gotten the boat for all of the wrong reasons. More than likely, I would have quit, which is what I did. But I would have, if I hadn't understood what this was about, like I didn't really want a boat, then I would have quit and felt bad about myself. But instead, I recognized I don't want a boat. I want to ride on a boat from time to time. I don't want to own a boat. If I had chased that, it would have taken a tremendous amount of effort. And so for those people who evaluate this adventurous lifestyle as like, it's too much effort. It's too much effort if it's not something you really want. But if you enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, then the effort doesn't feel like effort. So some of the things that these people are talking about on this podcast, these are things that they really enjoy. So it's very natural for them to put in the effort. And it's the process is enjoyable, because if you're really doing what you want to do, then the process itself is enjoyable. The thing you need to watch out for is if you're not enjoying everything that leads up to achieving the goal, and then finally you achieve the goal and you go, now I can finally rest. Now I can finally celebrate. If that's what's happening, warning, this is not what's going to do it for you. And you can chase these goals for the rest of your life, and the majority of your life will be unenjoyable, and you're sort of saving up all your joy for those 1 or 2 hours where you achieve the goal. And to me, that is just not worth it. So if you're not enjoying the process, good chance that it's not doing it for you. It may look glamorous to live that life that you're chasing, but if you're not enjoying that process, it's likely not what you want. It's not what's going to fulfill you. So I would recommend reassess that. And that's part of what I do in the membership program, is really assess your values and reassess your values and reassess your strategy for achieving those values. When I was first started going to or I guess when I was I grew up in South Louisiana, and I went to college in New Orleans. So at 18 in New Orleans, you could get into most bars, and technically speaking, you weren't supposed to drink because the drinking age had just gone up to 21. But I know you're thinking, God, this guy is that old. No, in Louisiana, it's a different world over there. So I think the drinking age, I think I was 15 or 16 when they finally raised the drinking age from 18 to 21. And so I'm 41, just by the way. So you can kind of put all this in perspective. That wasn't long ago that Louisiana had an 18-year-old drinking age, which is very low. Anyway, so I get to New Orleans and I'm all excited because I'm from a very small town, way back in the swamps. You wouldn't even believe where I'm from. You'd be like, there's no way. Like, where's your accent? And blah blah blah. Anyway, so I'm in New Orleans now, and I get to go to clubs now, and I'm all excited because I've grown up listening to my older cousin and my older brother talk about the clubs and how much fun the clubs are, and all the fun that they have at the clubs. And there's also these older high school students who are, when I was a freshman in high school, they're the same thing. We're going to the clubs. We're going out to, we're going to drive up to Lafayette, which is like an hour away from where I lived, or some people were even going to drive as far as New Orleans. And I started going to clubs, and I didn't enjoy it. So I'd go into these loud boom, 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 clubs, and there's these really pretty people, and they're dancing, and I'm not a good dancer. I'm more of a talker, and it's too loud to have a conversation. So I was like, okay, I can't talk. Everybody's dancing. I'm not very good at dancing. I'm just not enjoying myself. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Instead of saying, I'm just not really enjoying this, I'm going to go home. I thought, what's wrong with me? And I kept going out to clubs with friends weekend after weekend, blowing money and not enjoying myself, being unwilling to admit to myself that this is just something I don't enjoy. And finally I let it go, and finally I realized, no, it's just not my thing. And I think that's what a lot of people are still doing. I was 18 at that time, but a lot of people, even into midlife, are still doing that. They're like, well, yeah, I should want these things that these successful people I admire have. And so they're still chasing that. And a lot of times they get it. And then they won't admit to themselves that all that effort and time that they spent chasing it, the truth is it really doesn't fulfill them. And so they double down on it, and they keep pursuing that. Just like I continued to pursue going to clubs, even though I didn't enjoy them. All right, let's see. We're getting close to the end of the hour. I have a few more notes here. What do I want to give you before I wrap this up? Okay. So I guess what I'm really saying here is separate the stuff that sounds cool from the stuff that you really enjoy doing. And it just might happen that you're not so cool. It's just not who you are. Not cool in the sense of internet cool or famous cool or any of those things. So separate those things. What do I think is cool? And that's why I'm interested in or even pursuing it. And what's really me? You'll save yourself a lot of time because a lot of time, and a lot of frustration. So take the time to do that. If you're not even feeling confident about taking the first step, throw out confidence, forget about confidence, turn to determination. What is it? What are you determined to do? What is the life that you're determined to live? How do you need to change in order to become the person you want to be? How do you need to change your life in order to create the life that you want to live? So be willing to do that. Be willing to change, and then get determined. When you don't have confidence because you lack the experience, that's normal. Get determined. What are you determined to do? Determine how you want your life to be. Determine who you want to become, and then be willing to change to become that. I think that's one of the biggest problems people have is they're unwilling to change. They say, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to dream up this stuff. I'm going to law attraction this stuff. I'm going to manifest this stuff, and it's just going to show up at my door, and it's just going to come to me." And it just doesn't work that way. You need to change in order to create the life or be the person you want to be. Stop waiting for it to come to you. It just doesn't work that way. And explore your life without having a role model. Explore what it's like to carve out your own way as you go. A lot of people are afraid of this. They look to someone they admire. They say, okay, well, they did these things, so I'm going to do these things. And sometimes that can be helpful to a certain extent, but in the long run, it's your life. Be the artist of your own life, and it's going to be about figuring it out as you go, not thinking it out. A lot of people want to put it all on paper, and or they want to come up with all the answers in their mind before they take action. And again, that's not going to work because that's not how life is. You can't fully comprehend all of the possible curveballs that are going to be thrown your way. So, uh, action is you have to take action. You have to get that information. You have to get that experience, that sensory based information to understand better what it is you're pursuing and what it is that you want. And a lot of people would rather live in their heads. They would rather live in their heads because the fantasy is so much more interesting than the doing, or for them at least. And you need to flip that. You need to flip that to the doing is more interesting than the fantasies in my head, more along the lines of, well, what is possible and what might happen if I do this? What happens if I try this? The fantasy in your head is going to, at some point, there will be a reckoning. And you'll get confronted about that fantasy, and you can choose to either slip deeper into the fantasy world and become less connected to reality and become more detached, or you can say, all right, I'm willing to allow this fantasy to be crushed and to die so that I can move forward. And I'll give you a great example of that. I talked about doing that training with the natural lifestyles. Most of us are living in our heads, especially men, and in our minds, we are the leading man in the movies that we watch. And we even have music that goes to this. We have even a trailer that goes to it. And so we're walking around with this fantasy of who we are. And if anybody doesn't see it, then we're just like, oh, well, they don't know what's really inside of me. And there's some truth to that, actually. But we're walking around thinking we're this. And one of the best ways to wreck that real fast and get very real about who you are is to approach a woman and get rejected. And then you go, whoa. So I'm not the leading man in the movie in my head, like I've been dreaming about. And that can feel terrible at first. But if you keep with that, you keep destroying your ego with action, and not like purposefully destroying and not beating yourself up, but by challenging yourself, you're destroying your ego by challenging yourself. That path will lead you to ultimate fulfillment and joy. It's not an easy one, but that's really where you want to go. And then you become unstoppable because you know that you can handle risk, you can handle rejection, you can handle failure and keep going. You become so resilient. It's like a muscle that you work and you become stronger and stronger at it. So get out of your head. And a lot of people are afraid to get out of their heads. That's what not taking action is about. They're afraid of that fantasy being destroyed. Destroy that fantasy because it's not based in reality, and start building a vision that's based in reality of what is possible for you based on your experience. All right. So carve out that way, carve out your own way. And that's just a step by step process. It's not going to be sorted out. Like I said, planning is not a bad thing, but it's not going to be, you're not going to figure this out in your head first. It takes incremental action as you go and then reassessment. And really just decide what it is that is your life to live that's no one else's. That's a good place to probably stop here. So think about that. What is yours? What belongs to only you? So I'll give you an example. Paying taxes. That part of your work belongs to the government. It's just how it is. Tax day is upon us. So that, yeah, you have things like that. You have obligations to others, or you have obligations to institutions. So that's not yours. The time raising my kids, that time, that effort belongs to them. but there are all these other things that belongs to me. And so that's my health, that's my happiness, my fulfillment. That's what I do for work, what I choose to do for work or to how to make money. That's mine. So think about that in your life. What's yours and what belongs to other people? You have obligations, and that's normal. And it's actually a good thing. We should feel that sort of connectivity with others, that we are in a community, we have obligations to each other, we have responsibilities to each other. The same with family, the same with your job. So make a clear distinction between what's yours and what's other people's, because a lot of us are living the life that we were told to live, and a lot of people won't admit that. And I did it for years. So all those trying out all these patterns. It was almost like there was the script had been handed to me by my family. This is how or not just my family, but society and teachers and whatever authority figures were around. They're telling you this is the way. You go to college, you get a job. This is how you do it. You go to church on Sundays. You find a wife, 2.2 kids. And so I'm just kind of rattling off mine, but yours could be very different. But we're all sort of handed these patterns of what we're told life should be like, what your life should be like, and how to live it. And it gets very confusing when those patterns don't work for us. And then we often beat ourselves up and think, well, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not happy with this? I have success. Shouldn't I be happy with that? I'm such a spoiled brat. I'm such a bad person because I'm not happy with the things that I have. It's not quite like that. And there are definitely spoiled people who are just never happy with what they have and don't take that time to appreciate and be grateful for what they have. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but when you're not feeling that, check in. What is it that I'm doing? Am I living my life, or am I really sort of playing out the patterns of my parents or the patterns that I was told to live? A lot of times that's what's making you unhappy. So really assess, well, what's yours and what belongs to other people, and then take responsibility for all of it. Take responsibility for your obligations and take responsibility for making your life as interesting and wonderful and fulfilling and satisfying and happy as possible. If you're not experiencing those things, it's up to you. And if you are blaming outside circumstances, or you're blaming things that are you don't have control over, you are just sticking yourself in that spot. And you can come up with every justification for it. Well, this happened and that happened. You can play that game as much as you want to try to tell yourself that there's nothing you can do about it, and you'll just have to accept that life. Or you can change your mind about it and say, okay, well, what is possible here? Yes, maybe my circumstances aren't wonderful. They're pretty bad. But if I change my mind about what's going on, how can I take responsibility for my life and then change it and turn it into the life that I want to live? That is up to you, even in terrible circumstances. All right. So we just got a few minutes left. Somebody put in a question. What do you think of free will? Well, um, I mean, it's a really big topic. I like a lot of what Sam Harris has to say about free will. It's sort of like, yes, we have free will, but no, we don't. And that is basically you have all of these processes that have been in play in your life, and most of them are unconscious. And most of them sort of dictate your decisions before you consciously think about them. So a lot of the things that you do, a lot of the decisions you make are based on these unconscious processes that are already in motion. But what we can do is we can stop and think and reassess those processes. And we can take those processes, and this is what NLP is all about. It's about taking those processes and making them conscious so that we understand what's happening, so that we can change it. So instead of the processes controlling you, you control the processes. So do you ever get to a degree where you're completely in control of the processes and then free will is absolute? Probably not. But man, it's a lot of fun to do that, to bring those unconscious processes into consciousness and change them and get better control over them. I've That's been my life's work for the past several years, and so yeah, I'm sure. I'm not going to say I'm sure. I know there are plenty of unconscious processes that are sort of moving me in one direction or another, and uh, making my decisions for me before I even think that I'm making a decision, because that's what happens. You think you consciously make decisions. No, the decision is probably precedes your conscious decision, I think by like 15 seconds or something like that. So that can give you the sense that there is no free will. But if you go back and reassess a decision that you've made and you trace it back, well, what was the process that brought me here, which you can absolutely do, and become conscious of that process, the then you can change it. And so a good example of this is I keep seeing different numbers for this, but it's like the 15 biases, cognitive biases, or the 25 cognitive biases. Start learning those. And those are a good example of those processes that are unconscious, like how your mind naturally gravitates to certain things. And these are your biases. So um, when you think you have free will, no, a lot of times you're falling into one of these biases. But the cool part is you can become aware of this. And when you become aware of it, you can change things and you can become more in control of your life. Like I said, you're not going to become completely in control. You're not going to have absolute free will. You're always going to be affected by your biases. You're always going to be affected by these processes. But you're not a passenger. You're not a passive participant in this game. You can be you can be. I don't recommend it, and I think most people are, but you can be an active participant in this process. And so that's what I recommend. And that's, like I said, what NLP is all about, is becoming aware of these processes so that you can change them, and so that you can basically change them to create the life that you want to live and become the person you want to be. Okay. I don't see too many questions. Well, actually, I'll be more accurate. I don't see any more questions. I will answer one or two more if anybody has any. So just one more time too, the membership program that I've mentioned a few times. I think actually that's not true. I think this is only the second time I mention it. Who's counting though? If you want a step-by-step process of doing exactly what I'm talking about, where you're becoming more conscious of your processes, your values, what drives you, what drives your decisions, that for most people is unconscious. You can learn what this is. You can create a vision for your life. And I don't want to say it's effortless, but it will feel effortless to a certain extent because you're enjoying it. You're enjoying the process rather than just postponing gratification and enjoyment till you get the goal. No, that's not a way to live. So this is the process that I use for myself in manifesting the life that I want to live. And believe me, it's not just sitting on the couch and vibrating at a certain frequency or just visualization. There is visualization, but it's visualization with action. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out for 7 days for $7. It is a monthly program. When you check it out for 7 days for $7, you get the first 3 months. Watch the videos, do the exercises, see if it's right for you. And if it's not right for you, it means that you're not interested in taking control of your life. No, I'm joking. Some trainings are just not suited for certain people. But I would say there's a percentage of you who are very serious about this, and my words are resonating with you. And those are the people who I would say that you would probably get the most out of my membership program. And like I said, it's ongoing. Your life is ongoing. Your improvement is ongoing. Fulfilling your potential is ongoing. So of course the program is ongoing. So check it out. See if $7. If you don't have $7 to check into this, then that probably means that you really need to check into it to change things in your life. All right. So are we living a simulation? Oh man, you were really into this matrix stuff, huh? This is that you're going more into. So what you're going more into, Richard, is a philosophical discussion with some real world implications, I think. It's a very big discussion, and I don't think it quite fits what I do here. But that doesn't mean that I don't like that discussion. It's just that I don't think it quite fits what we're doing here. And whether or not it's a simulation, just do the things that I'm telling you to do. And you could go endlessly into this whole like theoretical what are we really living, and on and on and on. And like I said, that stuff is really, really interesting, but I don't know how much it actually helps you. So that's why I don't like to get too wrapped up into that. But I like real world application. I spent years studying non-duality, and I had a great teacher, John Wheeler, who kind of has disappeared from the internet, but he still lives in town. That's one way I still have access to him. And I think there's some videos up. If you look up John Wheeler, not the physicist or mathematician, but John Wheeler, non-duality. Um, Probably one of the greatest living non-duality teachers, and very humble. Like, he's not a person who likes to stand up on a stage and teach these things, and he's hard to find. But I studied that for years, and it was wonderful, and it cleared up a lot of things for me. But at a certain point, I needed something applied technique. Like, I need to not just know that I'm not separate from the world around me. I need to eat. I need to make a successful business. I need to raise my kids. So I needed more application and technique and tools to do that. And that's where NLP came in for me. So the philosophical, the conceptual, the all of those things, they're wonderful conversations to have. And I don't want to dismiss them as not being helpful. They are. It's just not. It's just kind of not what I do right now. All right. Can you give me more info on biosis? I'm not sure what you're asking. So let's do that another time. Sounds interesting. It was a joke because you were at the end of the live stream and I wanted to see your reaction after. That was good. Well, thank you for that. That's really cool. You wouldn't believe how many people are really seriously throwing those questions at me. Even asking questions like, "Is there a God?" And I'm just like, okay, well, this is not this is not the time to ask those questions. Or I don't. It's not what I do. But well, thank you for the humor, Richard. Thank you for throwing those things in there. I don't know what biosis is. Somebody's asking about biosis. Should I know what biosis is? Anyway, let's talk. We're closing this thing down now, but in the future, let's talk about really what I do, and as far as teaching you real world tools and applications to better your life, to find out what it is that's really going to fulfill you, drive you, um, make you successful. That's where I want to go with these lives. So let's try to keep it more to that. We don't have to keep it to just NLP. Um, I want to go into more things than just NLP. But think about, what's the life you want to live? Who do you want to become? Who's the person you want to become? What's the ideal you? And let's help you create that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. I gotta go get my kids. All right, take care, everybody.